All right, we'll get her in real quick. Hi, Isabel, sneaking in at the last possible moment. We are live. Well, hello, welcome to Community Manager Live. I'm David Dewald, Community Manager at Sienna. Each week, we bring a collection of community professionals together to discuss the topic suggested by our audience. If you would like to chat along with us today, you can do so on YouTube and LinkedIn, where we can pull your questions in and display them on screen so everybody can kind of tackle them. So, thoughts, comments, please put them in the chat wherever you are, and we should be able to see them. You can find links to where all these places are on our website, communitycmgrlive.com. That's a nice shortcut, or cmgr.live. And this week we are talking about what to look for in a job description. You know, when you're looking for a community role, what are we looking at when we as community managers are seeking new roles and new positions? Not that any of us are necessarily doing that, but some of us might be. And we'll cover that too.
Or at least we might not be saying it publicly.
And here we go, broadcasting it live to the internet. There. All right, so we're going to go around the corner here, and we'll start with Tim. You can say who you are, what you do, and where you do it.
Yeah, I'm Tim. I am the head of community at Homeroom, where we help Web 2.5 clients and creators with their community strategy, platform, and tech stack for their platforms. So that's a little bit about me, coming to you from Tampa, Florida today.
Valentina.
Yes, hi everyone. Valentina coming to you from Madrid, Spain. I am the community experience lead at Disciple, and I manage our customer community, The Collective, which is essentially our customers that are using our community platform to build communities, and my job is to help them build communities. Try putting that into a drinking game. Hello everyone.
Yeah, I think you'd die of alcohol poisoning if we had community as the word to make you drink. Go ahead, Isabel.
Yes, sorry. Hi, my name is Isabel. I'm joining in from Dublin, Ireland, and I'm a community manager for an internal product and content team at a hospitality tech company called Muse. So I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you. Alicia?
So, hey everyone, I'm Alicia. I'm joining you guys today from Mexico City. And I'm actually at this point in my career where I'm kind of looking for something, but not very actively. But I do have experience in managing communities for Microsoft and for also a tech-related company that manages freelancers' jobs. So that's what I've been doing for some time now. And I also had an NGO that runs more like co-living operations and co-living promotion in Poland. So nice to join you today.
Thank you. Lori?
Hi, I'm Lori Goldman. I am calling in from Denver, Colorado, and I'm the developer community lead at IndieKite, which is an open source Web3 platform for identity and access management. I'm happy to be here, of course.
Oh, yes, we're happy to have you. Thank you. So we actually have an international crowd today. You know, we've got Europe representing twice over, and Mexico? That's still North America, barely. All right. So to kick this off, I thought we'd talk first, as you're looking, the first thing that we're going to talk about is what you see when you go looking. So when you hit LinkedIn or whichever, service you use, and you type in jobs, community manager, first things you're going to see is what that job entails and what the descriptions look like, and how sometimes what says is a community manager job maybe not is a community manager job. Maybe it's very narrowly focused, maybe it's very broad, and I just wanted to get your thoughts and opinions on what you guys have maybe seen out there in recently, especially you, Alicia, since you're looking. I know that we do see a lot of times that community manager jobs and social media jobs get commingled, and sometimes it is a case of them being both, but sometimes it's not. So what do you think? What have you seen out there that just kind of descriptive wise on these jobs that are just not great?
So you want me to go first?
Well, yes, sure. I wasn't going to call you by name, but no.
No, it's cool. I have been checking out some offers on LinkedIn, and to be honest, it's been I don't know. I didn't really find it very inspiring. I feel like where community management job is something that is so complicated in a way and so human based that I feel like all these descriptions are just very vague, and they're like, oh, you need to have 7 years of experience or you need to have 1 year of experience. Well, like from my experience, I know that that's not what's the clue here really. So I feel like with community management job, I actually stopped applying. I don't apply for anything right now because I feel like when I'm ready, I will just like reach out to the network. And hi, Jess from San Francisco. I will just reach out to my network and try to get like some context more in this way, because I feel like searching for a community job through like official ways is very difficult, I'd say, and it's very like vague. Like I don't really enjoy it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, one of the things I've seen, and this has been true for 15 years now, and probably more of a percentage 15 years ago than it is today, but community managers for property.
Yeah, property. Yes, apartment community managers. Let's see, HOA community managers.
Yep.
So.
And really, I mean, if you think about it, they're not too much different than community managers for co-working spaces, right?
Right. And I've seen co-working spaces too. Yeah, it's funny. Like, I haven't done a job search in a few years now, thankfully. But it was like, I'd go into LinkedIn and it'd be like community manager in quotes, and then it'd be minus realty, minus property, minus, so I can eliminate these keywords so that I can just get to like, and maybe I would minus social media sometimes just to filter out if that was mentioned in the body somewhere. But yeah, it can be tough. I do see like locally, because I get hit, if you're on LinkedIn, people are like, hey, we saw 3 jobs you might be interested in, right? And it's usually property management around here in Raleigh. It's like apartment communities that are always looking for people to, run their apartment communities. So
I'd just like to jump in and say that I used to share a lot of community jobs on LinkedIn because I'm very active on LinkedIn. And in one of the roles that I was doing, I was updating a community manager job board. And the 2 things that I actually now look for, even when I'm just sharing on my own LinkedIn, before I even look at the actual description and what they want me to do, is where is it based? Because obviously now remote working is huge. And just because it says remote, that could be remote US, remote Europe, remote anywhere. And it's really confusing if people don't get very specific of where exactly it's remote. And I can only imagine if you're looking for a new community role, the last thing you want to do is go through the whole description and start applying and then realize it actually only means remote US when you're based somewhere else in the world. So that's something that if anyone is looking for a new role, is to make sure it's clear on where it's located before you start applying. Because we all know applying for jobs in general is a full-time job. Like, it is not just like, oh, I'm just going to apply for this job in the next 5 minutes. The other thing, which I'm really hot on right now, and that is getting better, is salary transparency. I refuse to share a community job on my LinkedIn if it does not have a salary or salary range, because as we know, if we then look at the description and all the different tasks and responsibilities that a community manager may have for a particular company, you want to know how much they're paying for someone to do all of this. Like, if you are up for doing social media, which is a very kind of like gray area, like, I want to get compensated for that if that's something I'm willing to do. But if they're not willing to put that in the job description, in my opinion, if I was looking for a new role, I wouldn't even consider applying for that. Because they see that what is it called, where it's like what do they put when they don't put the salary, or competitive salary?
Yeah,
competitive where, right? So yeah, because as we know, community management jobs, especially if you consider on a global scale, there are community manager jobs in, say, Africa that pay $20 a week, right? And it's a legit community manager job, but in their economy, that's an acceptable income. And it's not obviously not acceptable anywhere in the United States or Europe, probably for the most part, but that's acceptable. So competitive to that, or competitive to the United States.
Yeah.
Even in
It's-
the United States, it ranges from, I guess it's gotten better. So 50 to 150 or 200 now. I think I've seen some get that high,
Yeah.
but that's still a humongous range, you
Mm.
know?
Well, and I
One-
think one thing too that you brought up, Valentina, about like these remote jobs and everything. One thing that I did, a year ago when I was looking was living in Tampa, Florida. Usually the only ones, kind of like David said, in Raleigh, you get are the real estate related community managers. But since most are remote, and I do think your point about like remote to where, right? Like, because a lot of them might make you go in the office for a little bit, like one day a week, or if you need to be there once a month for an all hands or something. But the one thing that I found was when I put searches in for community manager jobs in San Francisco and New York City, I was getting ones that had salaries that were 100 to 200 range, as opposed to 50 to $75,000 range, or less sometimes. Sometimes it was for equity or part time or these things. And the beautiful thing about, I think, what how we moved more towards more companies being open to remote working is, don't focus your job searches on where you live now, unless if you definitely want to be in an office somewhere all the time. You can really open yourself up and get a better salary by searching some of these other locations.
Definitely.
Lori, I saw you talking. Get in here.
Okay, I will. I think just to continue Valentina's thinking is I look for, where does it sit? Are they clear about where it sits in the organization? Is it in customer success? Is it in marketing? Is it in CTO? Is it unicorn in its own department? And if they show, I know, right? Hallelujah. If they show the reporting relationship, it reports to the CMO, the CTO, whomever, the chief community officer. So much the better. That tells me, to see something like that tells me, okay, they might be pretty clued in here.
Definitely.
Yeah. I heard a podcast recently with Patrick O'Keefe on his podcast, Community Signal, that he was talking about how he doesn't think that a C-suite community officer is going to be a thing anytime soon. He's happy to be wrong, but it doesn't make sense in a lot of cases.
And then another thing to just kind of complete that is, oftentimes you'll get, if you're lucky, the different departments with which you'll collaborate. So sometimes they'll be as clued in to be like, you're going to work with marketing, you're going to work with product, you're going to work with customer success, you're going to work with all these different departments, and you need to understand, what their needs are. So
I think that's one of the things that I ask about typically is, there's a few things that I ask, as part of the process is like, can I see the community as it is today? If it's closed, they may have to give me special access. And if I can't tell, I'll ask them what platform it's on, but generally I can tell based on how we're professionals, right? We've seen them all. So we can usually tell sometimes just by the URL what community platform they're built on. Look at you, Chorus.
Yes, especially. Well, Discourse you can tell too.
Yeah.
Discourse
Same with Salesforce as well. There's they have a very specific URL structure they use that gives it away every time. And then I also ask about stakeholders. Who else is involved in the community? A good example is where I work. We have Salesforce's Experience Cloud platform, and it's shared between many teams, right? So we have a knowledge team that has the knowledge base. We have a support team that has the support and knowledge piece of, not knowledge, but support part of it as well. And so we're all in this community together, working to get things done. We have learning in there as well, because we do trainings. We have a customer success team that's in there putting out events and making sure that things are being handled properly. And all of us have to work together to make this thing go. And being able to understand that as you come in can do a lot of things. It can tell you how well supported you'll be. That there's other people's that, their job kind of relies on the community being successful as well. So they're going to help you if you need help. and just what resources are also involved, and what kind of responsibility you may end up having. I had one job that was just a very bad fit for me, where the community was owned by one team. The platform was owned by one team, and the community itself was, and how it was organized, was owned by another, and it felt like I could never get anything done, because when I'd ask for something done, it would go into a black hole and just sit and languish, and never move. So it was just like, I'll take the paycheck, but I'm not really doing anything. And eventually they wised up. We parted ways. So, but that's how it happens. So I try to find those things. Responsibilities and duties. What should we be looking for, and what should we be wary of when we see them on these job descriptions? Any thoughts?
I mean, first of all, I think it depends what the role is. Like, if we're talking community manager, community lead, I mean, there's so many different roles out there right now. So I guess that depends what then we should be looking for. Obviously, if the role is more senior, then on the job description, the responsibilities are going to be more senior and potentially more responsibilities than of a community manager. My big thing, which may seem kind of silly, but are you managing a community? Like, I know it's a community manager role, but as we know, sometimes that's very social media focused. And in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinions, social media is not where you build a community. I mean, shoot me now, but that's my opinion. And therefore, I'm not managing a community over there. I'm managing an audience of followers. But that's something I want to look for. And that goes back to your point, David, when you said, can I get access to the community? Which is something you can maybe even ask for when you are applying, if you have a contact, maybe. As Alicia mentioned, contacts are invaluable when you're looking to apply for a role. And that goes back to my salary point. If I don't see a salary, I reach out to someone and ask them, is there a salary range? And they usually can provide it. So if you don't ask, you don't get, is my key point to this.
In the States, a few of our states have enacted laws that require that they put salaries on their job descriptions. I can't think of the state off the top of my head, but I know of one. There is at least one that has that, where if you put a job out there, you need to put a salary requirement, or a salary range, I should say. I'm of the same mind on the salaries. That'll be the first thing I ask a recruiter. They'll be like, hey, would you be interested in this job? And I'll be like, what's the salary range? Because that right there is enough for me to go, nope, that's not what I'm looking for. And it saves us both a whole lot of time, right? And it can shortcut the whole thing and just make it easy to move on.
How many recruiters have you asked that question to that actually answered it?
One, but that was 3 years ago.
Or do they come back with, well, what are your expectations?
Oh, well, I guess I'm fortunate, having been a community manager for so very long, and that my salary range is on probably the higher end. And when they come back and say that, I will say, I make currently this much. This is my bonus structure. This is what I have for benefits. You need to beat this by X percentage. And they either say, well, you're way out of my range, or we can make that work. And that's what happened with the job that I'm in now. I said, I make this much. I need these benefits. And they said, we can make it work. But all the other times they were like, oh, hey, it's nice talking to you. Have a good day. It was just over with that quick. And there's some that I've asked and they've just not responded ever again.
Yeah.
Well, and it looks like Jess is telling you that Colorado is the state that does that.
Yeah,
and
thanks,
California
Jess.
is going to be coming up.
Thank God I live in Colorado. Yeah, and it makes, I feel like sometimes the relationship with recruiters, it feels very transactional. At least that's like, I love you for this amount of time, and then, oh, I can't use you anymore, so bye. So when, you have those kind of conversations about salary, it really reinforces that feeling, I think.
Yeah. I always just like the first initial like discussion because it seems like I'm talking to HR, and they'll ask me questions that they think are important for the role, and I've had some weird questions asked of me that just are not community anything, and I'm like, oh, okay, I can answer that. That's weird, but I'll answer it. And I kind of sometimes just wish there was a little shortcut, or if they just one of those very transactional, like you said, if they're like, "Are you interested?" Because they might be interested, I'll pass it along. But that's just me. Community is still a weird role in the world for a lot of people, and so that first initial discussion with HR is always, unless they've got some pre-prepared questions from the hiring manager, it just usually feels awkward. So.
So you can go, Isabel, if you want.
I was just going to comment on that I think it's maybe a year ago when I was a job seeker that I would really appreciate not only when the recruiter actually will tell me right there and then the range, which as you were mentioning, Tim, obviously is quite appreciated, but I think also when they are working quite close to in my case, I report to the chief product officer. So even the talent acquisition person, she works with the product team quite closely. So she will already have knowledge of what they were looking for in the role. So I hope that everyone in the audience that is actually looking for a role right now, that they can have those initial conversations, because I think for everyone that's already, maybe we can decide in our minds if we want to move forwards. Like just that interaction alone as well can put us off, or can be like, tell me more, like I want to really be part of this company. So those, just along those initial conversations, and maybe this goes more for the companies recruiting for a community manager, that at least have that uh, tell your HR talent acquisition person to like really tell them what you're looking for, because that's the first, in the virtual world, that's like the first person we're going to see, we're going to say hi to, that will represent a company.
Yeah.
Ooh, we got a big one from Jessica here, so I'm going to read it. I'm entering at 2 places. We have 1,000 to 1,400 applicants, the most of any job they've ever posted. The recruiters said most of the applicants don't even have community experiences. What are your recommendations towards standing out when we're competing with so many people for a first interview? That's a great question, and it takes up the screen and you can barely see the bottom 3 people. I'm so sorry.
I'll wave if I can. Also from the role that I have been at Mias for now 6 months.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So for standing out, if you have no experience, I don't blame you for trying, right? You have to start somewhere. But for community, it's so easy to get experience. I say that because there are so many. I mean, you've got to have a hobby that you're interested in. And if you have a hobby, there's going to be a community around that hobby somewhere on the internet, right? And you can just go in and say, I want to help manage the community. I've never done it before. I'm going to need some help, but I want to help manage this community, and volunteer. And you can get so much experience that way that can easily lead into a professional role. And if you think about people like me who have been doing it for 24 years, Rich Millington, he started off in the video game industry. He created his first community himself. I started the same way. I created my first community myself. Let's see, who else? Patrick O'Keefe from Community Signal. He created his first community for himself. He still runs them to this day, I might add. And, start a community if you can't find one to volunteer in, and just learn that way, learn on the fly. It's harder if you start it by yourself. It's easier to find an existing community and jump in, but that's how you can get some experience, and some is better than zero. If you have experience, make that the first thing that you talk about. Standing out is talking about the successes that you've had. Don't be afraid to talk about the failures, because those are all learning experiences. I tried this, it didn't work. Obviously, you may not want to put that on the resume, but just be prepared to talk about how you've learned through, failures. I openly talk about a bad job fit that I had a couple of jobs ago, where just it was not good. I didn't fit in well. The community didn't fit in well with the structure, the way the company was structured, and it was a failure of a match. And I learned from it. It's like, be more careful about what you're looking at when you do it. And it was also a situation where I was leaving a bad manager, so I had a reason to leave. So I may have taken something I shouldn't have because I was trying to get away from a bad situation. So.
Can I answer Jess's question?
Sure.
What's up with that company's applicant tracking system? Because, right? Because it's my understanding of how things work is you've got your keywords, and their ATS should be picking up keywords, things like community, things like roadmap, things like metrics, KPIs, all these different fun things. We could go on and on about that. So I would question this company, and maybe they don't have an ATS and they do everything manually, but they should be able to separate the wheat from the chaff that way. So
what I think you bring up a good point, though, Lori, is, this is why it's important when you do submit your resume, not to just send the same resume to every single job application that you are applying for, because of these systems that are in place. The people that are reviewing them are going to look for what words are on there. And KK's here, so she's from my old HR community. Hi, KK. It's really about making sure that you're looking for, those key elements as far as phrases or words that they're using in the job description that you can align your resume to match. Yeah. But I think the other important thing too is to remember, I think most of us as people want to describe what we did. I think most companies, and especially nowadays with the way that the community industry is maturing, is we need to show what results we created through the community. And I think when we start doing that, we start demonstrating that, it's not just something that we can do. We know how to measure it. We know the impact that it's having on the company. These are, I think, two key elements that will set you apart from somebody that hasn't had any experience applying for a role, because most people that are just starting don't think of it that way.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah, definitely. But I would actually add super different angle to it, because for me, like as a person that applies for jobs or like have been working in several places, I do feel like all the community managers or people that are managing communities are usually just like the nicest people that you can reach out to and talk to, honestly. And what I would do, I would just like literally find the community managers that are already in this company and find them on LinkedIn and just ask them to have a 15 minutes call with you and ask them about the job. And if you click, they will be the ones who will recommend you to HR. So honestly, like my advice also as a person that worked in a startup, working in HR space for almost 2 years, is to skip HR whenever you can. If you can get to a hiring manager directly or to the other community managers, either on LinkedIn or maybe in some community managers communities, for instance, I don't know, CMX or whatever, you can just like build these relationships kind of bypassing the HR. And I think that's the most effective way. So even when I was hiring just somebody to help me, I did it through a community. I didn't do it through my HR in my company, because I just knew that whoever they're going to bring is probably not going to be a good fit for me anyway.
Yeah, I love that you say that, because I've always said, and I talk with a lot of college students that are just getting ready to graduate, and I'm always encouraging them, never just do a cold, send in. Make it warm by like referencing somebody that you have in common, even if you don't know them. But the great thing about most larger organizations is they all have employee referral programs. And so instead of this is important, before you send in your resume, you must get in touch with the person that you know, or maybe a friend of a friend that you know, and get their permission, get their name, included in there and get their direction on how you should go about applying. Should you send them your resume? Should you do it through the system and put their name in there? Everybody's set up a little bit differently, but understanding that means that when your resume gets into that recruiter, it's already going to be seen because you're connected with somebody in that organization.
That's a good one.
So I have some thoughts on how you can be more creative. And I actually did this previous to the job I have. I saw a job advertised on LinkedIn. It wasn't through the LinkedIn jobs. It was just through like a post through somebody I was already connected with. And within hours, I saw how many people had said they applied. I was like, right, how am I going to stand out? So I rewrote the lyrics to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air to tell them why they should hire me to be in that role. I didn't send a cover letter. That was my cover letter. And it's something that I have done ever since to get people's attention. The thing that actually kind of sparked this was I saw a long time ago someone put their resume on a cereal box and sent it out to different places. So if you can get creative, which most community managers can, because that's what we do every day, we get creative in terms of putting together content. That's how I was able to stand out. It leaves a hopefully nice lasting memory, whether you decide to take the job or get the job or not. But that's something that I've done. And going back to your point, Alicia, about applying for jobs, finding them in communities, the job I have now, I found in the CMX Slack.
Yeah.
And that was only for 10 hours a week back in the day. And now it's a full-time job. So if you're not part of these communities for community managers, a lot of them have dedicated channels for jobs or boards, that kind of thing, because even though LinkedIn or similar places are good for jobs, they're not necessarily the best.
And please join us next week when we'll be talking about communities for community managers.
There we go.
Anyway,
We had a whole Twitter conversation about that today.
I will aim for that segue later, Valentina, to PayPal it to you or something. Very good. All right, where are we? Anybody else wanted to add anything to all of that? If not, I think we can talk about maybe the company itself, doing some background search on that, look at their culture, look at their values. My company that I'm with, we have Sienna Cares is our big thing. And then we do a lot of outreach in the community. We get, what's really cool about what my company does is if I do any volunteer hours, my company will match that with a monetary donation. So if I put in 10 hours, they'll match it with X amount of dollars. Every hour's worth so much. But I don't necessarily have to dedicate it to the company that where I went and volunteered. I could do it to another entirely altogether. So, I have a background in web development. One of the things I looked into doing is that here where I live, we have a museum for this little small town I live in, and their website was in a rough shape. And, they talked to me about it and they said, well, how much would it cost us to have you redo this? And I said, well, because you're a charitable organization, my company will pay me to do it for you. And I'll be able to give you a small donation when I'm done. And so you won't pay me, I'll pay you to let me do it for you effectively. They decided to go with somebody else and I can't blame them for that, but it was an option. I know. So they had already made some other deals. You know how it is. It's like there's a bunch of people, lots of heads, too many chefs. And so they had already kind of committed to somebody else. And but if that doesn't work out, I'm sure they'll come back to me if they want. But yeah, so and that kind of thing is one of the things that drew me to the company is that, we have these days where they're like, hey, just quit work, go volunteer somewhere. We'll pay you, we'll make a donation as well, those kinds of things. So I look for those kinds of work-life balance type deals and what they're doing in the world and how I think more and more, even companies are starting to look at other companies that they buy product from and say, what are you guys doing for environmental purposes? You know, how are you cutting back? Is it a green company? What are you doing to cut wastes? And I work at a company that produces computer hardware, so we have a lot of stuff that we have to worry about as far as waste and those kinds of things. So that's one of the things I look at, just checking into the company, making sure that their financials look okay. You know, I'm not jumping in on a sinking ship, what their values are, those things. Any thoughts on that from anybody else?
I think it's really important for wherever you work to align with your values. You're going to be spending a lot of time at the job, so it might as well be a place that's a good fit. You don't want a car with 3 wheels, as they say.
Yeah, to me, I feel like I'm recently especially paying more attention to literally people that I work with more than I do to the company, because I know companies, like when you look at corporations, like I don't want to name drop, but some bigger corporations that have like all this employee benefits in place and all this great values and stuff, but like at the end it turns out they're not doing anything good for the world, like when you sum it up. So I feel like oftentimes when the more a company pays for PR and for all these actions, the less responsible they really are, and they're just like getting, no, honestly, like it's just like, why do you spend that much budget on making good things, like if your like main actions, if your main work is good, like so I think it's important to look at this. I do think that checking the ethics of the company, are they ethical, like how they behave, is crucial. But I also think that it really goes down for me to how people behave. So like, is my manager ethical? Are they going to be lying to make themselves look better? And just like overall work environment within my closest team. And then I think like the company values come in second, simply because from my experience, it's often not that real, you know?
And even at times, I think there are like things that might look good on paper. Like quite a few years ago, I was working for a company where you will get basically all 3 meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And maybe that sounded great, but basically, I remember seeing people, and sometimes including myself, that I will grab my plate, my dinner plate at 7 or 8 p.m., and we will go back to work. So again, on paper, like, oh, they are feeding us and all of that stuff, but is it really like, do you have to spend your whole day? I mean, we were spending our whole day there more with than our families or friends. So I think sometimes, yeah, just look out for things that might look good on paper, but it's actually like, that there was no work-life balance that way. So yeah.
Yeah.
I've noticed too that happy employees that are very happy at their companies post things on LinkedIn about why they love their companies. Like my husband works for a company called Progress Software, and they do a lot of employee recognition. And when they get shout outs, they will put it on LinkedIn, like, I got a shout out today. And I think little things like that go a long way, especially for folks like us, who, we're a certain type of person. And I think, a little thing like that would go a very long way. And I know if I worked for a company that did that, I'd be like, I got a shout out today. I feel good,
I do agree with you, Lori, but I will preface it by saying that, a lot of people drink their Kool-Aid where they're at. And some of those people get paid to drink the Kool-Aid while they're there, to do that specific thing, promote the company and how great it is. But that being said, I think what you really need to do if you're looking for a job and you're seeing and looking for those things is be honest with yourself. Is this something that I am going to feel comfortable with? Do I see myself, yes, I get these warm, fuzzy feelings and I want to go rah, rah and drink the Kool-Aid too, but at what cost is that going to be for me personally? And I think when you start looking at those things, it really helps. I don't think there's any magic answer here as far as how you can determine all this. You know, I mean, we're giving a lot of good insights and ideas on how to research, how to ask questions. But the bottom line is sometimes you can do your best and you won't know until you get the job and find out that it's not the right one for you.
I agree. I thought you were going to be like, but participation trophies. Right?
Everybody gets one.
Right? Right, exactly. I think another thing too is I think we're a fairly intuitive lot of all of us. And I think if you're an intuitive person, which I think we all are, when something feels kind of off. You know, maybe it manifests physically, or maybe you're just like, and to really trust that instinct and go with it is, it's one of those, neat tools you can use when you've got all these other things going on.
I know. I remember one time I had asked when I was interviewing with a different company last year about, like, one of the questions I specifically asked to get an idea of their culture was, describe a time when you had an issue with your managing, your manager, and how did you handle it? And if they tell me they've never had an issue, it's bullshit right there. But if they start describing it in a way that sounds like textbook how the company wants them to describe it, that's also a red flag for me. It's like if they're honest with me and tell me, hey, I did this, I thought it was going to work this way, but it didn't. I know that they're being honest, and at least there might be some cracks in how it's working, but at least they're open and they feel comfortable enough sharing that information. And so I think it's really important to ask some of those questions about the people that you're interviewing with to know and get a much better feel. And like you said, we need to use our instincts. We can't just rely on what they're telling us, because their job is to get the best candidate. And if you're the best candidate, they're going to do what they can to get you for the cheapest amount of money. And no matter what, it doesn't matter if it's a good fit. They'll say, oh yeah, we want a good fit, but it's more important for you as a job applicant to be the one that makes sure it's a good fit for you.
I think for me, in terms of talking about the company and what do we want to get out of it, I work remotely. I'm the only person here in Madrid, Spain, working for the company. So for me, I need to know how the company kind of brings together everyone remotely, because we all know when we're in the office and we're all together, it's a very different vibe than being everyone all around the world. So if you are looking to apply to a remote company, or you are going to be working remote, it's how do they bring people together so you can get to know each other, not just sending Slack messages to each other all day. Like, are there opportunities for like tools down days, or are you going to get together in person? Because I definitely have felt very lonely in previous jobs where the effort wasn't made to get to know other people in the team. Teams then become very siloed. So that's really important to me, is the culture within the team and how everyone gets on and gets to know each other in and outside of work.
Yeah, just and a fair warning, because I had a job a few years ago that was in an office, and all I did was sit at my desk. I could have been sitting at home, although they didn't let us, but that was how it felt. Exactly what you're just describing, Valentina, about feeling isolated. I was in an office, and it's still, you can feel isolated in an office.
Yeah, but I think what Tim said before is just crucial, because just like depending on what you want, because maybe, you need to be alone, or I know when I was having recruiting for my last job, I just basically told them that I want to do digital nomad thing now. So I will never be anywhere close to you guys. Like, I might come like once a year to say hi. And, and to me, like, that was crucial, that they will accept this, that I will be in different time zones, that I will be traveling, that I will be doing things. And to me, that was crucial. So I was willing. Actually, the company didn't have the things that you mentioned. They didn't put much effort into bringing people together, and that a little bit sucked. But like, to me, it was so much more important that they were cool with me traveling the world all the time, that I was willing to, swallow that pill to get this. So yeah, I think like what Tim mentioned is basically crucial. Just like figure out what's the most important thing for you, and then just like try to find an employer that matches that.
That's a great point. That's a great point. What about what do you look for as far as maybe like growth and development opportunities in the role? So sometimes you can see that on they'll describe it in the job description. But I mean, what questions would you maybe ask to kind of suss that out from the company? You know, a lot of our jobs, you know, community doesn't really have a traditional, you know, architecture of like, you know, management roles. And, you know, there's where we are just now kind of getting to the point where we're trying to diversify what we do for a living into, you know, there's practitioners, there's moderators, there's developers, you know, and community professionals as a whole. We're starting to specialize a little bit. But how do you go about looking and asking those questions, you know, or what questions would you ask of a company to kind of suss out what happens? You know, they ask you where you want to be in 5 years. You know, maybe you ask them, where do you want this position to be in 5 years? What do you see? How would you go about doing that? What would you ask?
Yeah, for me, something that I will ask, and because I have those conversations now every month, I will ask what's their approach to either mentoring, what's their approach? Do they have budgets allocated for either going to conferences, for courses? How do they approach, or how often would they schedule a personal development plan for their team, for their employees? So I think it's just trying to find out more about that upskilling mindset. That, I mean, for me, it's also important to know if they are upskilling themselves, if they have even the time to go to get mentoring themselves, to go to a conference, etc. So it will be a reflection of on their own work-life balance, and also how do they value their employees to actually go out there and upskill.
So Laura, you stepped away for a minute there. Who knows what happened? It happens. We were just talking about you know, asking about growth and opportunities of you know, where do they see the role in 5 years? Did you have any thoughts or questions you might ask to kind of get that information out of the employer?
Oh gosh. I think having an understanding that there is a career path, and gosh, can I think about that one for a second? I'm still a little flustered from my computer crashing.
That's all right. I'm glad you made it back.
Me too. I was a little nervous there.
So I can give some maybe startup perspective. So with the startups, like I worked in startups, like my 3 last companies were startups. Like when you ask them where they want to be in 5 years, like nobody knows. Like it's like they can try to make something up,
That's
but like
scary.
they literally don't know. They don't even know like what's going to happen in a year because you're in a startup. So that's like a very different dynamic. So like it's always risky to join a startup. It can go either way. Even after they got like a huge financing round, like you never know what's going to happen. That's kind of a beauty, but the risk of also working in startups. So I guess that's also kind of important when you recruit yourself to a company. Like, is it a startup? Is it an established company? How long is it in the market? Like, what are the, what is the potential? What are the prognosis for them? It's very different. So I know the last company I've joined was on the market less than a year. So they like literally didn't know what's going to happen. So it's more like whether you believe in them, you believe in the company's mission, you believe in the people, and you want to build it with them and see what happens. When you join a startup, I do believe that when you join a corporate environment, it's very different.
Well, I do think too that like sometimes some companies have like what they offer as part of their benefits. It might not be listed on the job description, but if you have that initial call, the recruiter might direct you to a link that you can sign in and see all the benefits that they offer. And if they have learning or skill development or whatever it is in there, you can look and see what it is. Now, the one thing that I've experienced personally is I've been at ones where you are open to choose what you want to pursue. But then I've been at companies where you need to justify why you want to take this thing before they'll approve it. And so they're two very different things, even though both companies are offering skill development, but one is doing it in a way that allows you to take your own path, and one is going along their path. And I think that's critical to understand. I think the other thing too is to really understand, like, you know, just because a company says they have something doesn't mean that your department or team will have that budget, right? And those opportunities. So like when I was at HuffPost, when we launched HuffPost Live, I had zero budget, $0 for technology, $0 for skill development, $0 for travel, conferences, anything else. Zero. As soon as I got promoted to the director of community, now I wasn't under HuffPost Live. I was reporting directly to the CTO. Now all of a sudden I had a budget. I could go to lunches. I could go speak at places. I could go to conferences, and all that was paid for by the company. So sometimes it's just not the company; it's your actual team or department that you're working within that you need to specifically be asking these questions if it's available, and if so, how is it being managed, and are you in control of it, or are they in control of it?
Something to add on to that. In my current role, I don't have anything in the benefits that I get any kind of learning or anything like that. I saw a course. It was with the community club when they were doing their cohort-based course. And I was like, I really want to do this. I went to my manager and said, I've seen this. I think it would be really great for me and for us and building a community. And she said to me, put together a proposal of what you think you're going to get out of this and how it's going to help us build the collective, how it's going to help Disciple, and we'll go from there. So that's what I did. She loved it. And that's how I was then able to take that course. So even if there isn't something specifically written in the job description, it goes back to my point from before. If you don't ask, you don't get. The worst thing is they can say no. But if they do say yes, then you're going to be like on top of the heels because you could have just sat and been like, oh, well, there isn't anything. They probably won't give it to me, etc., etc. So, yeah, if you see something that you think is really going to help you in your role or help your team or the company, pitch it. Even if you don't get it, the pitching opportunity and experience of pitching is experience in itself. So that's my top tip.
And if you don't get it, go do it anyways.
There you go. Figure
Find a
out a
way.
way, right? All right, we've got about 8 minutes left. So how about some final thoughts? If you let's kind of do this. If you were giving advice to a hiring manager about, what they should be, asking, what they should be putting in the job descriptions, what those things look like, what would you have that be? What would that look like? Laura, you look excited.
I'm thinking.
Okay.
I think to be as specific as possible and to be as realistic as possible. Because you don't want someone to come in and be like, oh, I'm all excited. I'm going to choose my platform. I'm going to, work with marketing on this, and I'm going to work with customer success on that. And then you get in and it's not happening. And that, that leads to turnover and that gets expensive. So I would say be as straightforward and realistic as you can. And also, list other possible opportunities where you could branch out.
Yeah.
I would be wary. I mean, I'm
Really?
so afraid nowadays of seeing job descriptions for community manager that has everything but the kitchen sink. Hey, we'll need you to do video and graphics and YouTube and Twitch and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, and also you got to figure out how to market to the community and
Be a data scientist, and
we'll need some excellent reporting, and in between the 5 minutes of sleep you get doing this role, you need to be ready to answer questions 24/7 on whatever platform they're so that's my worry, is that they just put too much out there. Be concise, if don't put it on there just in case you find somebody that does it all. Just put what you need, like if it's going to be a community job, just describe it. This is what we want you to do. You might touch social media, but it's not a part of your role. If it's not a part of the role, don't put it on there in the hopes that you'll get somebody that'll do it all. So
I think there's 3 things that I would like to see in every community job posting is, which Valentina already touched on the one earlier on, salary. 2 is what the structure of the team and how it reports through the entire organization. And my 3rd one is that we really need to understand what the company is looking for community to deliver to the organization.
Yeah.
Accountability.
Totally.
Yeah. And in addition to that, something that I've seen in a few descriptions recently, but it's really got me excited. That's what I would love. I feel like job descriptions lack excitement. When you read a job description, you want to almost feel like you're already working there. It makes you that excited to apply. And I see a lot of the time where like, this is what we're looking for, which is great. But I love it when sometimes they write, if you're looking for this, this, and this, this is the place for you to come and work. Like making me feel like I'm already there, because that gets me excited to actually sit there, figure out if I need to write my CV, resume again, do the cover letter. Make me excited that, out of all the job descriptions I've looked at this day, this is the one I'm going to apply for first.
Oh, and I thought of another one. Don't ask me to do work before I work for you. So seriously,
I've had to do that for a couple, major strategy document.
Yeah, a major strategy document. It's like, I'm going to give you the most generic, universal strategy document you've ever seen in your entire life, and I'm going to put about 10 minutes work into it. I may even ask ChatGPT to write it for me to make a point.
I would have if ChatGPT, whatever.
Exactly. So don't ask me to do work before I work for you. That's my other thing. It's like, I will happily give you. I mean, there was a role for, it was a role for a large company years and years ago, and they said, if you would supply basically a document that outlines everything that you would do to, make this community successful for us. And I'm like, that's what you're paying me for, I mean, I'll give you an outline, but I am not going into any kind of detail. So, you want a presentation, you're going to get a 10, 20, 30 presentation, 10 slides in 20-point font in 30 minutes, kind of a thing. Anything else? Anybody else? No?
Yeah.
All right, 3 minutes left to go. So we'll go around. Since if you're job hunting, please let everybody know how they can hire you. And otherwise, let people know how they can get a hold of you and how to find out more about you, how they can connect with you, and how they can learn more from you if you want to share. We'll start with Lori Goldman, please.
I'm on LinkedIn. You can link in with me on LinkedIn. I'm a CMX Connect host. So for the Denver chapter. So I'm on the CMX Community Managers Workspace. I'm on the Rosieland Workspace, Community Club, Cultivators. And I feel like I'm forgetting someone. I'm on a couple DevRel ones too. And also I'm on one that's related to cybersecurity. But, you can always reach out, or you can ping me at lori@lgoldman.com. My name's spelled Lori.
Very good. Isabel?
Yes, I'm also part of quite a few of the Slack communities that Lori mentioned there, but easier LinkedIn and Twitter. That's my handle.
Alicia?
Very similar to the woman before me. So you can find me on LinkedIn. That's my full name there, and on most of the communities, but LinkedIn is the easiest, I guess.
And are you job hunting?
Kind of. Not actively.
Not actively, but if somebody were looking for a community manager and they were to reach out to you, you might talk to them, right?
Yeah.
All right, very good. Valentina?
Yes. So LinkedIn is the best place to come and connect with me. My name is there. I'm also in CMX Community Club. I'm also a mentor in the Community Club. They're a mentor program. So if you're looking to be mentored, I'm part of that. But feel free to reach out if you have any questions about how to write a cover letter, or if you want someone to look at your resume. I'm not an expert, but sometimes one outsider looking in can see something you didn't. So happy to help where I can.
Francisco might have to take you up on that, because he mentioned he's moving from leadership marketing role into a community position. So he might have to take you up on that.
It's kind of crazy that it's like hard. I feel like community is very like intuitive for many of us, I guess. So
it's intuitive, but it's I think it's hard to show that shift to a hiring manager, like to where it makes sense. And I can see where that would be a problem. If you're in marketing leadership, you can easily manage, lead a team. You've got the leadership part of it down pat. I feel like it's just how that marketing applies to community, when so much of marketing to community can be tricky. Tim?
Tim? And you can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn, two places I probably spend the most time outside of Facebook. But you don't want to hear me share my sunset photos and all that stuff. Well, if you do,
they are pretty though. He does share them. He's not
always with some wisdom, hopefully, that goes along with the pictures. But you can find me there, and like Valentina said, in no formal capacity, I'm always willing to help people. So if you're looking to get in the space, you're looking for a job, I'm not an expert in anything. I'm just know a lot about a lot of different things and have a lot of experience, so can point you in a few good directions, hopefully.
Very good. And I'm David Deal. I want to thank my guests and my co-host Tim McDonald for joining us today. And thank you, Jessica, Kathleen, Francisco, for joining with us today. If you enjoyed this, please like or subscribe, follow on the platform of your choice, wherever you're watching today. If you'd like to be a guest or on our show, or have a topic that you would like us to cover, if you head to cmgrlive.live.com or cmgrlive.com, either or, you can hit the bottom right corner. There's a little pop-up that'll say you can do that. We also do a podcast version of this. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. It'll be available a little bit later today. And thank you to everyone for joining us. And we'll catch you next week when we're going to be talking about what topic next week? I was about to say it.
Okay, well, usually you forget. I wanted to do it before you did the outro.
Yes, next week, we're going to be talking about communities for community manager. You may see some familiar faces from this one there next week. And I may have a surprise little announcement to throw in there just to keep things interesting. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye,
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.